Hello and welcome to another 2 Network match report with me, Adam. It's finished at the Amex, it's finished at Brighton 1, Newcastle United 1. Not really the second half we were hoping for after such a, almost like a walk-up. It was like a training game in that first 45, but as we've seen the last few weeks, second halves just aren't our thing. They are not our thing. Lots of changes for this one. Shelvey was the surprise inclusion in midfield, coming in for Key. Manquillo kept his place. Atsu came in for the injured Almiron as kind of expected, and Lascelles' injury paved the way for Fede Fernandez to get a rare start, which would have been, very rare start in the second half of the season. In the first half, he was very, very integral for us, but yeah, it was a really, really odd game. Given how, it was just. There was just no intensity. Going into this game, Cardiff had lost against Fulham. Brighton could win and all but assure survival, given there was a 14-goal swing and goal difference from Cardiff. But it was so pedestrian. It was really, there was no urgency from that home side. And unless, this whole game was about Brighton. It was about, can they win to stay up? Are they going to, if they lost, that puts them in a lot of trouble. Even a draw, which they've ended up coming away with, despite being just one of the... that's just one of the worst halves of football I've ever seen a Premier League side play, just ever. I thought they were absolutely awful. But then I thought we were poor as well, because we didn't have the cutting edge. And I think as much as, we absolutely missed Almiron's incision and his pace. Perez obviously had an early injury and had to go off, shortly, soon after his score in the opener. But we were kind of relying on Atsu to sort of be our main playmaker, attacking playmaker in that sort of final third, with Shelvey sitting deep. And obviously when Shelvey came off eventually, where was that goal going to come from? Where was that creativity, that intelligence? Where was that actually going to come from? But we started out very, very positively. We really dominated possession. We were hitting figures like 62% possession all the way through that first half. Sorry, and we just looked in absolutely no danger at all. There was no threat from Brighton. There was no urgency. They sat so deep, and you wonder, their line of engagement must have been sort of in their own half. It was absolutely bizarre. They seemed really happy for us to just have the ball and spray it around. And to be honest, in terms of like John Joe Shelvey coming back into the side for his first start in, weeks, what better game to play than in a game where your opposition essentially doesn't have a central midfield? Hayden and Shelvey dominated that first 45, and they just, nobody closed them down, nobody harried them. It was perfect for John Joe Shelvey. He was able to get the ball, he would spray it around, pass it around, keep the ball moving. He berated Fabian Schär, who the last few weeks has been sort of marauding out of defence on one of his runs, and in fairness to Fabian Schär, a couple of times he's done that this season. He's come away with goals. So he got into the box sort of early doors, which was sort of headed away quite well by Bernardo, who was a bit of a frustration for us, really. I think he got a couple of important tackles in for them. But there was one incident where Schär tried to come forward, he tried to beat a man, easily telegraphed, and Shelvey's had to chase back, and he's basically saying, pass the ball to me, that's what I'm here for. You don't need to maraud out when you've got me, because John Joe Shelvey's the kind of player, as we all know, who has the vision, who has the passing range, that we don't need to run with the ball, he can pass the ball, and he very, very often will find another player. So I thought, there was just a bit of readjustment, I think, for having Shelvey on the side, because we are going to play differently with him in the side. So maybe that was just sort of an example of player chemistry just needing a bit more work when sort of new faces are there. Very similar to Manquillo. Like, Manquillo does get forward and he has a bit of pace, but we can't expect him to be in the same positions as Yedlin has been in, simply because he doesn't have exactly the same attributes and he's a slightly different kind of player. So there was just a bit of that, to be honest. But I just think we lacked a lot of creativity. We did dominate the ball, but we just weren't clinical. But I mean, the time that we were clinical after 18 minutes, and it was an absolutely beautiful goal. It'd been a very, very easy first 15. And Paul Dummett just sort of, as Shea did on the other side, Paul Dummett just sort of strode forward, unchallenged, getting midway through their half, and he's flighted this ball over to the back post to Rondon, which is absolutely beautiful. It was pinpoint. Rondon's had the savvy to know exactly where Perez is, and he just chests this ball. It's beautiful. He just chests this ball down to Perez, who thwacks it. I'm going to use that verb. Thwacks it into the top corner. I mean, he's already carrying an injury at this point, because he had that amazing run previously where he almost quite fortuitously got into the box and through and couldn't get a shot away, got tackled. I don't know quite where the hip injury came from. I don't know if he's overstretched or whatever, but when he struck that goal, he was, his mobility was hugely impaired, and he hadn't really been doing much running for the previous sort of 5 minutes before that strike. But you could tell when he was celebrating with his teammates, he was kind of just shaking his head going, nah, like I can't keep this up, I can't continue. So huge shame. So then you're suddenly in a situation where, so Kennedy, who's just been the forgotten man this season, who completely off form, you've got Atsu, who isn't a goal threat, and we're suddenly in a position where we're having to, we are having a lot of possession. It seems very easy, but we just don't have the cutting edge. We don't have the players to A, find Rondon, or B, assist Rondon and getting those goals that say Perez has been getting in, 11th goal this season for Ayoze Perez, and that's just class. It's absolutely class. You can't fault that. You can't question that. That's absolutely brilliant for a player who is essentially he's not a proper striker. He's playing in an attacking midfielder berth. That's just a ridiculously good return, and another assist for Rondon, who continues to impress. And we did get unlucky with penalty shouts in the first half, I thought, and as I mentioned, Shea sort of marauding forward. One of those times, plays a 1-2 with, I believe it was Kennedy, who slips him through, and he gets ahead of his man, who swipes at his shin. Shea doesn't go down, honestly, stays on his feet, or tries to stay on his feet, but he's stumbling. The keeper comes out, he tries to take it past the keeper. Matt Ryan collects, and you just think, I mean, even Steve McManaman on the commentary was saying, it's too honest, go down. He goes down, the referee has to give a penalty. And this is Mike Dean we're talking about, the man who has a fetish for awarding penalties. And his honesty meant that we didn't get a penalty. And you just think at that point, 2-0, the way it was going, the way there was no atmosphere at all, there was no drive or urgency or energy from Brighton. As I said, it was a lethargic. They were sleepwalking in the first half, and we didn't take advantage of it when we should have done. And that's what really irks me about this. Before the game, knowing how much that game tonight meant for Brighton in terms of their survival, the magnitude of it, especially with that Cardiff result, I expect them to come all guns blazing, and I expected it to be a proper scrap. And to be honest, I thought we might lose it, simply because maybe our complacency gets in the way. We've got injuries. We've now not finished that game with three very important players out of injury in terms of Almiron, Perez, and Lascelles. So that it shows that we weren't at our best. We didn't have our best starting 11 out there, and I think that shows. And I just think this is where the lack of investment comes from. This is where you can pick up £3 million defenders like Fabian Schär on release clauses, and Federico Fernandez on a free, and key on a free. But when it comes to goal scorers, when it comes to attacking midfielders who can score, put the ball in the net, when it comes to players who can, match what Rondon brings, or heaven forbid, I have to fucking replace Rondon, regardless of what's happening. Who knows what's going to happen there? We just don't have that cutting edge that we need to have. So these things troubled me, and Rondon was very unlucky not to get a penalty himself in the first half as well. A definite clip around the heels. I think was it Bruno. It's a penalty all day long, and Rondon's washed the ball down all the way, and he's good enough to hit that first time. He has done that, Scored against Argentina a couple of weeks ago. He is good enough to take down that ball or hit it first time, but he wasn't given the opportunity because he was fouled in the box. So that's 2 penalty shouts in the first half that, penalty fetishizer Mike Dean just didn't want anything to do with. So that was I thought that was just really frustrating, and those incidents, like I say, a 2-0 would have been put to bed. And you think maybe, is it our mentality or is it our quality? It's probably a bit of both. I think if we still weren't mathematically safe, given how they came out in that first half, I think we're ahead 2-0, 3-0 in that first half. But maybe we didn't have the urgency as well, and maybe we were just happy to play their game in terms of the slow pace. But then obviously, as I said, we don't do second halves. Think about Crystal Palace. We dominated first half, didn't put them to bed. They went up the other end, smash and grab, penalty, 1-0, boom. Same happened against Southampton. Very comfortable, tidy 2-0. Southampton came out in the second half, completely different side. 2-1, suddenly a bit jittery. Closed out the game right at the end, but it could have been a completely different story. Same thing happened again here against Brighton. From essentially being like players on a table football, little wooden players, don't move, don't do anything, just rigidly stay in their positions, no urgency, slow, lethargic, pedestrian. And then the second half, they bring Solly March on, who suddenly can whip a ball in towards Glenn Murray. I mean, Glenn Murray just wasn't moving at all in the first half. He wasn't defending from the front. He just doesn't have that energy. He's like 35, isn't he? He's like, he's old. So they were kind of lacking. They were lacking that application. They were just lacking any interest really in the first half. But fair play to them. They came back, and we kind of struggled to continue. They came back for a flurry in the first 5 minutes. They took Kyle off because he had to pull his hamstring. But then after that, Basuma, one of their better players, came on instead. But after the first flurry of 5 minutes, we were sort of back in control again. But we definitely miss Perez. We 100% miss Perez, and it just shows what he brings to the side. It shows what Almiron brings to the side. Just how, Atsu was basically having to do it all on himself, and he just doesn't have that quality. He doesn't have the quality, I don't think, to cross well, to find Rondon. He doesn't have the quality to have a decent stab at goal, and I think that cost us. And it's not Atsu's fault. Atsu's just doing Atsu. It's not his fault we haven't spent money. Muto came on later for him, who and Muto, at that point of the game, we just didn't have any possession in the final third, so we couldn't really see what Muto was going to do. I mean, Kennedy, we had a counter-attack in that second half where Kennedy broke through and tried to cross it back post to Rondon. It was just poor. So Rondon really hasn't had the delivery. I mean, the best service Rondon had all game was from Paul Dummett, who's a centre-back, which obviously in the tee-up for the goal. So it was just really frustrating, and Brighton started knocking on the door. They started getting a lot of corners. Solly March put one in for Murray, who headed out for a goal kick, but it was a warning sign, you feel. And then on the right hand side, on their right hand side, Bruno's just not closed down by Kennedy, whipped a ball in. Glenn Murray's had a free header, and he's very cleverly, if he's meant to do this is excellent. I suspect he was just trying to get any sort of header onto it. Maybe that's me being unkind, but given what had happened for the previous sort of 75 minutes in the game, I would argue that it was it's just come off his head any which way. Pascal Gross is running between our defenders, who are just they're flat-footed. They're on their heels, and Pascal Gross is sort of in the second phase of plays. Just one header across. Pascal Gross comes through, not offside, not even a question of it, and Dubravka can't react. Dummett, it's kind of between Dummett and Fernandez, and they can't pick him up. They can't pick up the run, and it's 1-1. And it's a goal, and it's a point that essentially probably keeps them up. Given that Cardiff lost today, I mean, it's going to take a huge set of results from now. I mean, anything can happen, but it does mean that Cardiff probably have to win the last 2 games now, which I can't see happening. So a missed opportunity for Newcastle there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's never really going to have a massive bearing, because I think top half. I mean, whatever small chance we had of usurping those, I mean, we were going to have to beat Liverpool if we were going to even have any chance of that. So maybe it's not critical that we haven't won this game, but just to concede in that last sort of 15 minutes and the way we did, and how dominant we had been in that first half, and we just couldn't put them to the sword. And same old story really. So many 1-0s that we've had, you know. But what annoys me about Brighton is that Brighton have been a team who they came to St James's Park and were absolutely woeful. They're one of the worst teams I've seen play live this season, and they won the game. Kyle, I believe it was, with that shot, was a deflection from a shot from outside the area. But that was a game we dominated and just missed chances. So, and they're basically done the same again. Yes, they've sort of had a 15-20 minute spurt in the second half. They haven't scored for 12 hours, man, and then they score against us, and we looked so comfortable. It's such a frustration. But the fact that they've played really shite against us twice now and taken 4 points is laughable, I think, for a team that still aren't mathematically safe going into the penultimate weekend of the season. For them to take 4 points off us, that's terrible. That's really bad. So, yeah, I mean, like I said before, we need firepower. We need to not rely on just Rondon and Perez. You know, I think Almiron's a different case because he's adjusting. It's a transition. He got that injury, and I think he would have really flourished today, to be honest. I think, given how deep they were, he would have seen a lot of the ball within the box, and I think he would have been tricky to stop. So that's annoying, because he flourished against Huddersfield, who sat deep as well. So, you know, it shows that the attacking quality that we've got just isn't good enough. And despite things are looking rosy and we've survived, and you know everything's very optimistic. And yeah, I am optimistic myself. But in terms of goals scored, we're on 36. A goal a game. That's relegation form. A goal a game. It's only the fact that we've conceded less than we should be. You know, our defence is overachieving, which is why we aren't in a worse position in the league. That's literally it. And you know, when we do, like I say, it's been a lot of 1-0s, which is yielded those 3 points when we do get them. The rare occurrences. So yeah, I think there's only Brighton, Cardiff, Fulham, and Huddersfield all at the foot of the table who have scored fewer goals than we have. So we're the 5th lowest scorers in the Premier League, and it really showed today. So the fact that we finished the game with 1 shot on target, and what a shot on target, by the way. Fair play, Ayoze Perez. Very satisfying thwack. But we've had 9 shots, 1 on target, and that was in the 18th minute that we scored from. They finished the game with 9 shots, 2 on target. And how many had they registered at half-time, by half-time? 0. So, game of 2 halves, absolutely. But should it have been? Absolutely not. Should have put the game to bed, and maybe Mike Dean should have helped us out a bit there. There was another shout for a penalty in the second half, a third shout. Nah, we're not getting that. It was from close range, potential handball. However, the referee missed 2 blatant handballs just in open play. Blatant handballs. So that was a little bit frustrating as well. But yes, on to the big one. Liverpool next week. Last home game of the season. Possibly the last home game at St James's Park for Rafa Benitez if they haven't sorted a contract out. Who knows what's going to happen there. Expect another match report after that game as well. I'll be going to the Fulham game. I'll be down in London for that. I will get a video out at some point. God knows when. Because that's going to be a hell of a day. But I will be there. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. If you want to share with your friends. And if you listen to this on podcast as well, please give us a 5-star. Please comment, please like. And get your comments in below on YouTube. What went wrong today? Was the team lineup the right one? Were the substitutions right? What do you think we're going to do against Liverpool? And how do you think we're going to set up? All of that below, please. And I'll do my best to get round to answering them all. I've been Adam the Toon Network. We'll see you next week after the Liverpool game. Cheers, bye, bye.